Princess Jiwu stared out the window of her royal chamber. The 3 moons of her home planet glowed in the night sky. She sighed and turned away from the beautiful view. Beauty could not fix her problems. "Your Highness, the council is waiting." Hana, her most trusted servant, stood at the door. Jiwu nodded and straightened her royal blue dress. The silver crown on her head felt heavy today. It was always heavy on days when the Imperial Council met. "Tell them I will be there shortly," she said. When Hana left, Jiwu looked at her reflection in the mirror. At 25 years old, she was the sole heir to the stellar galactic empire, the most powerful civilization in the known universe. Her people ruled over 2,000 star systems. Billions of beings looked to her family for leadership. Today, the council wanted her to agree to marry someone she had never met, a cold, military man from the Vorn Confederacy. "It is your duty," she whispered to herself, practicing the words her father often said to her. The Imperial Council chamber was a massive room with a domed ceiling that showed the real-time movements of all the stars in their empire. 12 old men and women sat around a large table. They stopped talking when Jiwu entered. "Princess Jiwu," said Councillor Kyung, the oldest and most respected member. "We must discuss the Vorn alliance again." Jiwu took her seat at the head of the table. "I understand the military benefits of an alliance with the Vorn, but their ways are not our ways. They conquer. We govern." "The threat from the outer rim grows stronger," said another counselor. "The reports show these new aliens destroy everything in their path." Images appeared in the air above the table. Planets burning, ships exploding. Jiwu had seen these images many times before. "The Vorn have the strongest military fleet besides our own," Councillor Kyung said. "A marriage between you and Commander Torak would unite our forces." Jiwu felt trapped. She knew they were right about the threat, but something about the Vorn made her uneasy. "I will consider it," she said finally. "But I need time." The council members looked unhappy, but they nodded. After the meeting, Jiwu returned to her rooms. Hana was waiting for her. "How did it go?" Hana asked. "The same as always. They push, I resist, but in the end, I know what I must do." Jiwu removed her crown and placed it on its stand. "Hana, I need to get away, just for a day." "Your Highness, you have 3 meetings tomorrow and cancel them. Tell them I am meditating on the marriage proposal. I need to see normal people, Hana. People who don't bow to me or want something from me." Hana looked worried but nodded. "Where will you go?" "The trading outpost on the moon. I'll wear plain clothes. No one will know who I am." 2 hours later, Jiwu stepped off a small, unmarked ship at the lunar trading outpost. She wore simple brown pants and a jacket. Her long black hair was tied back. Without her royal makeup and crown, she looked like any other young woman. The trading outpost was busy and noisy. People from 50 different species walked through the wide halls. Some had scales, others had fur. Some floated instead of walked. Jiwu loved the diversity. She stopped at a food stall and bought a sweet drink. The seller, a 4-armed blue alien, didn't even look at her face. It felt wonderful to be nobody. As she walked through the market, she noticed a group of humans. They were new to the galactic community. Earth had only been discovered a few years ago, and humans were still a curiosity. One of the humans, a young man with kind eyes, was talking excitedly with a trader. Unlike the other aliens who treated humans with amusement or disinterest, this trader seemed genuinely engaged. Jiwu moved closer to listen. She had never spoken to a human before. Little did she know that this human would soon change her life, and the entire universe, forever. Do-Yun checked his translator device one more time. As Earth's newest diplomat, he couldn't afford any mistakes. His superiors had chosen him for this mission because of his quick thinking and calm under pressure. He was the youngest member of Earth's first official delegation to the stars. Remember, his commander had told him, to most aliens out there, humans are just amusing pets. Prove them wrong, but do it politely. The trading outpost buzzed with activity. Creatures of all shapes and colors moved around him. Some floated, some crawled, some had too many limbs to count. Do-hyun tried not to stare. His job today was simple: learn about local trade customs and make a good impression. Earth needed friends in space. They were new to the galactic community and had little to offer except their creativity. Do-hyun approached a trader with long green tentacles who sold strange fruits. "These are grown on the moons of Talax," the trader explained. "Very rare, very expensive." Do-hyun smiled. "On Earth, we have a saying: the sweetest fruits are worth the climb. May I try one?" The trader seemed surprised that a human knew how to bargain, but offered him a small purple fruit. Do-hyun took a bite and managed not to make a face at the sour taste. "Delicious," he lied. "I'll take 3. Unknown to Do-hyun, Princess Ju watched this exchange with interest from nearby. Humans were strange to her, so much like her own people in shape, but their behavior was different. Suddenly, loud voices broke out across the market. 3 large aliens with gray skin and sharp teeth were shouting at a small shopkeeper. Do-hyun recognized them as Vorn soldiers from his briefings. They were known as fierce warriors and part of a powerful confederation. "You cheated us," one Vorn shouted, knocking over the shopkeeper's display. The small shopkeeper, who looked like a talking bird, trembled. "No, good sirs. That is the fair price." The lead Vorn grabbed the shopkeeper by his feathered neck. "New price. Half what we paid, or we break your wings." Other shoppers moved away quickly. No one wanted trouble with the Vorn. Do-hyun hesitated. His orders were clear: stay out of trouble, don't make waves. But he couldn't just watch. He stepped forward. "Excuse me," he said, keeping his voice friendly. "Perhaps I can help with this misunderstanding." The Vorn soldiers turned to look at him. They seemed amused that a human would dare speak to them. "This is not your business, Earth thing," the leader said. Do-hyun bowed slightly. "I'm a diplomat. Making things business is my job." He smiled. "Also, I'm an expert in trade values across 3 sectors." This was a complete lie, but Do-hyun kept his face serious. "The feathered gentleman is actually correct about the price," Do-hyun continued. "But perhaps he could offer you something extra to show goodwill." The shopkeeper quickly nodded. Yes, I have special items in back. Very good quality." The Vorn soldiers looked uncertain. They had expected fear, not conversation. "What makes you think we care what a human says?" the leader asked, stepping toward Do-hyun. Do-hyun didn't back away. "Because humans are new here. We have nothing to gain by lying. Also, your commander might wonder why you start fights on a peaceful trading post." The Vorn glared but then laughed. "You have courage for a small creature." He turned to the shopkeeper. "Show us these special items." The crisis was over. The shopkeeper thanked Do-hyun with a small bow. From her hiding spot, Ju was amazed. The human had solved a dangerous situation without weapons or threats. Even more surprising, he had made the Vorn look foolish without them realizing it. "Interesting," she whispered to herself. Her royal tutors had told her that humans were primitive and simple, but this one was clever. As Do-hyun turned away from the shopkeeper, his eyes met Ju's across the market. For a moment, they simply looked at each other, a princess in disguise and a human far from home. Neither knew that this moment would be the beginning of something that would change everything. Do-hyun was about to approach the young woman who had been watching him when a loud explosion shook the trading post. People screamed and ran in every direction. "Attack! It's an attack!" someone shouted. More explosions followed. Smoke filled the market. Through the chaos, Do-hyun saw masked figures with weapons moving through the crowd. "Terrorist faction," a trader yelled as he ran past Do-hyun. "They hate all species working together." Do-hyun looked for cover and spotted the woman from earlier. She was trapped between a fallen stand and the advancing attackers. Without thinking, he ran toward her. "Come with me," he said, reaching for her hand. Ju hesitated. She had never touched a human before. "Trust me," Do-Yun said. "I know a safe place." Another explosion made the decision for her. Ju-woo grabbed his hand, and they ran together. Do-Yun led her to a small maintenance door he had noticed earlier during his security assessment. "In here," he said, pulling the door open. They squeezed into a narrow maintenance shaft. It was dark and smelled of oil, but it was away from the fighting. "Thank you," Ju-woo said after catching her breath. "I'm Ji." She stopped herself. "I'm Ji. Do-Yun, human diplomat from Earth." He smiled in the dim light. "Not exactly how I planned to make first contact with new species today." Outside, they could hear shouting and more explosions. "We need to help the others," Ju-woo said. Do-Yun nodded. "I agree, but how? We have no weapons." Ju-woo pointed to control panels lining the maintenance shaft. "These control the outpost systems. Maybe we can use them." "Good thinking," Do-Yun said. He examined the panels. "I don't read your language, but these symbols look like they might be for emergency systems." Working together, they figured out how to activate the emergency sprinklers in the main market area. "Water will make it harder for them to see," Do-Yun explained. "And it might help put out any fires," Ju-woo added. They also found controls for the emergency doors, which could seal off sections of the outpost. "If we close these doors in sequence," Ju-woo said, "we could trap the attackers in the north section." Do-Yun was impressed. "You know a lot about outpost systems for a trader." Ju-woo just smiled. They worked quickly, using the panels to activate sprinklers, close specific doors, and finally turn on the emergency lighting to guide people to exits. "Now we need to get out and help evacuate people," Do-Yun said. They left their hiding place and helped direct frightened shoppers toward the emergency exits. When a child became separated from its parent, Do-Yun carried the small, six-legged alien to safety. Ju-woo watched him with growing respect. This human risked his own safety for strangers of different species. It was not behavior she expected from a primitive race. Suddenly, a group of Imperial guards burst into the market area. Their silver uniforms gleamed as they quickly took control of the situation. The terrorist attackers began to retreat. One guard spotted Ju-woo, and his eyes widened in recognition. "Your Highness," he shouted, rushing toward her. Do-Yun turned to Ju-woo in surprise. "Your Highness." The guard reached them and bowed deeply to Ju-woo. "Princess, you are safe. The Emperor has been very worried." Ju-woo saw the confusion on Do-Yun's face. She straightened her back and suddenly looked much more regal. "This human saved my life and helped protect many others," she told the guard. "He is not to be harmed." Do-Yun stared at her. "You're the princess of the Stellar Empire." Ju-woo nodded. "I am Princess Ju-woo." More guards surrounded them, ready to take the princess to safety. But Ju-woo held up her hand to stop them. "Do-Yun of Earth," she said formally, "you have shown great courage and wisdom today. The Empire owes you a debt." Do-Yun bowed awkwardly, not sure of the proper protocol. "Would you consider serving as a cultural consultant to my court?" Ju-woo asked. "I believe we have much to learn from humans." The guards looked shocked at this suggestion. A human at the imperial court. It was unheard of. But as Do-Yun and Ju-woo looked at each other, both knew that something important had begun, an unlikely alliance that would soon change everything. "I would be honored, Princess," Do-Yun said. Do-Yun stood at the window of his new room in the imperial palace. The view took his breath away. 3 moons hung in the purple sky above a city that seemed to be made of crystal and light. Tall towers reached up like fingers trying to touch the stars. 1 week had passed since the attack at the trading post. Now he was here, in the heart of the Stellar Empire, the greatest power in the known universe. A soft knock on his door interrupted his thoughts. "Enter," he called. Hana, Princess Ju-woo's personal servant, stepped into the room and bowed. "The princess requests your presence at the morning council meeting," she said. Do-Yun nodded. "Thank you, Hana. I'll be ready in 5 minutes." After Hannah left, Do-hyun straightened his new clothes. The imperial tailors had made him special outfits that combined Earth styles with imperial fashion. Today he wore a blue jacket with silver trim over black pants. He looked in the mirror and took a deep breath. Just a farm boy from Korea, now advising an alien princess, he said to himself. No pressure. The council chamber was huge. The ceiling showed moving stars and planets, a real-time map of the empire. 12 council members sat around a large table, all looking at Do-hyun with cold eyes as he entered. Princess Ju-woo sat at the head of the table. She wore a silver dress and a small crown. When she saw Do-hyun, she smiled slightly. This is Do-hyun of Earth, she told the council. He will observe our meeting today and offer his perspective. An old counselor named Kyung frowned. Your Highness, allowing an outsider, especially a human, into our discussions is not wise. His different way of thinking may be useful, Ju-woo said firmly, especially with the Vorn delegation arriving tomorrow. At the mention of the Vorn, the room grew tense. Do-hyun took his seat quietly. For the next hour, the council discussed trade routes, military positions, and the growing threat from the Outer Rim. Do-hyun listened carefully. When Princess Ju-woo asked for his thoughts, he spoke honestly. On Earth, we learned that rigid thinking can be dangerous, he said. Your empire has great power, but sometimes fresh eyes see things differently. Some council members looked angry, but others seemed interested. After the meeting, Ju-woo walked with Do-hyun through the palace gardens. You made quite an impression, she said. Half the council wants you sent home immediately. And the other half? Do-hyun asked. They're not sure yet. Ju-woo smiled. But I am. Your way of thinking is exactly what we need. They stopped by a fountain of glowing blue water. Tell me about Earth, Ju-woo said. Your history, your cultures. Do-hyun told her about Earth's many countries, languages, and traditions. He explained how humans had fought each other for centuries before finally uniting. We made many mistakes, he said, but we learned from them. Ju-woo listened with genuine interest. Your people sound resilient. Their conversation was interrupted by a palace messenger. Your Highness, the messenger said with a bow. The Vorn ships have been spotted. They will arrive earlier than expected. Commander Torek requests an immediate audience upon arrival. Ju-woo's face became serious. Thank you, informed the council. After the messenger left, Do-hyun noticed how tense the princess had become. Is everything okay? He asked. Commander Torek is my intended husband, Ju-woo said quietly. The council believes our marriage will secure an alliance with the Vorn against the Outer Rim threat. Do-hyun felt a strange disappointment at this news, though he didn't understand why. And what do you believe? He asked. Before Ju-woo could answer, they heard the sound of ships overhead. Looking up, they saw 3 massive warships descending toward the palace landing pad. They were black with red markings. Vorn military vessels. They're here, Ju-woo whispered. As they watched, a smaller ship detached from the largest warship and headed directly for the palace. That will be Commander Torek, Ju-woo said. She turned to Do-hyun with worry in her eyes. Stay close to me in the coming days. I trust your judgment, and I may need your human perspective more than ever. Do-hyun nodded, feeling the weight of her trust. Little did either of them know how important that trust would soon become. Commander Torek of the Vorn Confederacy was tall, with gray skin and sharp teeth that showed when he smiled. His uniform was black with red symbols of rank. He bowed to Princess Ju-woo, but barely looked at Do-hyun. Princess, I bring greetings from the Vorn leadership, Torek said. His voice was deep and cold. We are eager to finalize our alliance. For 3 days, the palace hosted meetings and formal dinners. Do-hyun watched how Torek spoke kindly to Ju-woo, but was harsh with everyone else. The Vorn soldiers who came with him pushed palace staff around and laughed at other species. Do-hyun didn't like them, but he kept his thoughts to himself. On the 4th day, alarm bells rang throughout the palace. Do-hyun was reading in the garden when Hana ran to find him. "The princess needs you right away," she said. "It's an emergency." Do-hyun followed Hana to the palace control center. Princess Ju stood with several engineers and council members. Their faces were worried. "The defense shield has failed," Ju explained when she saw Do-hyun. "All imperial planets have shields to protect them from attack. Ours just went down." An old engineer pointed to complex screens filled with numbers and symbols. "The main computer says everything is working, but the shield is definitely down. We can't find the problem. And this leaves the capital completely open to attack," added Councillor Kyung. "Word will spread quickly." Commander Torak stood nearby with 2 Vorn officers. "The Vorn fleet will help protect you until the shield is fixed," he offered. "For a small fee, of course." Ju didn't look happy about this offer. She turned to Do-hyun. "Do humans have shield technology?" "Not like yours," Do-hyun admitted. "But we have solved similar problems before. May I see how your system works?" The engineers looked doubtful, but showed Do-hyun the control panels and explained the shield technology. It was far more advanced than anything on Earth, but Do-hyun listened carefully. "Your system is checking itself and saying everything is fine, but the shield isn't working," he said slowly. "On Earth, we would call this a logic loop. The computer is stuck repeating the same check." "How would you fix it?" Ju asked. Do-hyun thought for a moment. "On Earth, we sometimes use a simple approach. Instead of trying to find exactly what's wrong, we restart the whole system." The engineers looked shocked. "Restart the Imperial Defense Computer?" one asked. "That has never been done. The safety protocols would take days to override." Commander Torak laughed. "This is your expert, a human with primitive solutions." Do-hyun ignored him. "What if we don't restart it the normal way? What if we create a small, controlled power surge that forces the computer to reset?" "That's not in any of our procedures," the chief engineer said. "Exactly," Do-hyun said. "It's not something an enemy would expect either." Ju looked at the worried faces around her. Then she made her decision. "Try it," she ordered. Working with the engineers, Do-hyun helped create a device that would send a brief power surge through the system. It used parts from his own Earth communicator. "This might not work," he warned as they prepared to activate it, "and it might damage other systems." "We have no choice," Ju said. "Do it." Do-hyun pressed the button. The lights in the room flickered, and the control screens went dark. For a terrible moment, nothing happened. Then, one by one, the screens came back on. A loud hum filled the air as the shield generators reactivated. "Shield at 100% power," announced a computer voice. "All systems normal." The engineers cheered. Councillor Kyung looked at Do-hyun with new respect. Even some of the Vorn officers seemed impressed. Only Commander Torak looked angry. He quickly hid it with a smile, but Do-hyun had seen his true reaction. Later, when they were alone, Ju thanked Do-hyun. "Your simple solution saved us," she said. "Our engineers would have spent days looking for a complicated answer." "Sometimes the best approach isn't the most advanced one," Do-hyun replied. Ju smiled. "I'm beginning to see why humans might be more valuable than we thought." What neither of them knew was that Commander Torak had watched this exchange from the shadows, his eyes filled with hatred for the human who was winning the princess's trust. 2 weeks passed. Do-hyun became more comfortable in the palace. Princess Ju often asked for his advice, and some council members began to respect his ideas. But Commander Torak watched him with cold eyes. One night, Do-hyun couldn't sleep. He decided to walk in the palace gardens. The 3 moons made everything glow with silver light. As he walked, he heard voices coming from behind a tall hedge. He recognized Commander Torak's deep voice and stopped to listen. "The princess trusts the human too much," Torak was saying. "He could ruin everything." Another voice answered, one of the Vorn officers. "Our plan is still working. The attacks from the outer rim continue." Soon the Empire will have no choice but to fully ally with us. Do-hyun's heart beat faster. What plan? What attacks? And the human? The officer asked. I will deal with him, Torak said. Tomorrow. Do-hyun backed away quietly. He needed to tell Princess Ju-woo what he had heard. The Vorn were planning something, and it involved the attacks that were threatening the Empire. He turned to hurry back to the palace, but bumped into someone in the dark. It was a Vorn guard. What are you doing here, human? The guard asked with suspicion. Just getting some night air, Do-hyun said calmly, though his heart was racing. The guard didn't believe him. Commander Torak will want to speak with you. Before Do-hyun could run, 2 more guards appeared. They grabbed him and took him to Torak. The commander smiled when he saw Do-hyun. Our curious human friend. What did you hear? Nothing, Do-hyun lied. Torak laughed. Humans are poor liars. He turned to his guards. Take him to the cells. In the morning, we will tell the princess that her pet human was caught stealing imperial secrets. The guards took Do-hyun to a small cell deep beneath the palace. They took his communicator and locked the door. Do-hyun examined the cell. The technology was advanced, but the lock used a simple light pattern. It reminded him of Earth security systems. Every system has a weakness, he whispered to himself. He took off his belt and removed a small metal piece. Earth diplomats were given special tools for emergencies. This one could reflect light. Working carefully, Do-hyun used the metal to change the light pattern on the lock. After many tries, the door clicked open. He slipped out of the cell, but knew he couldn't reach the princess directly. There would be guards watching for him. He needed another way. In the past weeks, Do-hyun had made friends with some palace workers. One was Minna, a kitchen helper who often brought food to Hana, the princess's servant. Do-hyun made his way to the kitchen area, moving carefully to avoid guards. When he found Minna, she was surprised to see him. Please, he said, I need to get a message to Hana. It's urgent. Minna was scared, but agreed to help. Do-hyun wrote a quick note explaining what he had heard and gave it to her. Make sure only Hana sees this, he said. After Minna left, Do-hyun hid in a storage room. He knew Torak's men would be looking for him. Meanwhile, Princess Ju-woo was in a meeting with the Imperial Council and Commander Torak. They were discussing the marriage alliance. The attacks from the Outer Rim have increased, Councillor Kyung said. We need the Vorn fleet to help us. Torak nodded. The Vorn are ready to stand with you, Princess. Once our alliance is official. A palace guard entered and whispered to Torak. The commander's face darkened with anger, but he quickly smiled again. A small security matter, he told the council. Nothing important. Ju-woo noticed his reaction. Before she could ask about it, Hana entered the room. She bowed and brought a drink to Ju-woo, slipping a small piece of paper into her hand at the same time. Ju-woo read the note under the table. Her face remained calm, but inside, her mind was racing. Do-hyun had discovered something terrible, and now he was in danger. She looked at Torak, who was watching her closely. For the first time, she wondered if the man she was supposed to marry was her greatest enemy. Princess Ju-woo ended the council meeting early. I need time to consider these matters, she told everyone. Commander Torak tried to speak with her alone, but she refused. Tomorrow, Commander. I am tired now. In her private rooms, Ju-woo met with Hana. Where is Do-hyun? She asked urgently. Hiding in the old storage rooms below the kitchen, Hana said. Torak's men are searching for him. Ju-woo thought quickly. I need proof of what Do-hyun heard. The council won't believe just his word against Torak's. She looked at Hana. Bring me the small recording device from my father's collection. When night fell, Ju-woo put on simple clothes and covered her hair. With Hana's help, she slipped out of her rooms through a secret passage that only the royal family knew about. In the storage room, Do-hyun was surprised to see the princess herself. You shouldn't be here, he said. It's too dangerous. I believe what you heard, Ju said, but we need proof. She showed him the small recording device. This can record conversations through walls. We need to catch Torak talking about his plans. That's very risky, Do-hyun warned. I know, Ju said, but I can't let him destroy my empire. Together, they made a plan. Ju knew that Torak met with his officers in a small meeting room each night. There was a service passage behind it. They moved through the dark palace, avoiding guards. In the service passage, they set up the recording device against the wall. Now we wait, Ju whispered. An hour later, they heard Torak and his officers enter the room. The recording device lit up, catching every word. Our ships have attacked 3 more outer rim planets, one officer reported, all wearing the enemy colors, as ordered. Torak laughed. Perfect. The Empire believes they are under attack from a new enemy when it is us all along. And the princess? Another officer asked. Once we are married, I will take control, Torak said. The Emperor is old and sick. Soon the Vorn will rule the greatest empire in the universe. Ju's face showed pain and anger as she listened. When they had enough evidence, they slipped away. We must take this to the council immediately, Ju said. But when they reached the main palace, they found Vorn guards at every door. He's taken control already, Do-hyun realized. They retreated to a small room to think. There must be council members we can trust, Do-hyun said. Maybe, Ju replied. But how do we reach them? Suddenly, the door opened. They froze in fear, but it was Counselor Kyung. Princess, he said, looking relieved. I've been looking for you. Torak has told the council that the human is a spy working with the outer rim enemies. Some believed him. It's not true, Ju said. In fact, we have proof that Torak himself is behind the attacks. She showed him the recording device. Kyung listened to part of the recording, and his old face showed shock. We must act quickly, he said, but carefully. Torak has brought many soldiers into the palace. Who on the council can we trust? Ju asked. Only 4 members for certain, Kyung said. The others may be working with Torak. They made a new plan. Kyung would gather the loyal council members while Ju and Do-hyun would try to reach her father, the emperor. There's one more thing we should do, Do-hyun suggested. Contact Earth. Earth? Ju asked, surprised. What can they do against the Vorn? We humans are good at improvising, Do-hyun said with a small smile, and fighting against stronger enemies. Kyung gave them a small communication device. This can reach Earth without being detected by Torak's people. As the night grew darker, they sent a message to Earth explaining the situation. Then they prepared to move through the palace to the Emperor's chambers. If we fail, Ju said quietly to Do-hyun, the Empire falls. Do-hyun took her hand. We won't fail. Humans and Imperials together. That's a force Torak doesn't understand. For the first time since the crisis began, Ju smiled. Together, they stepped out to face whatever came next. 3 days had passed since Ju and Do-hyun sent their message to Earth. They had managed to reach the Emperor, who was weak but still able to understand the danger. Now they were hiding in an old royal bunker beneath the palace with the Emperor, Counselor Kyung, and a few loyal guards. Torak has announced that you and your father are ill, Kyung told Ju. He is acting as temporary ruler for the good of the empire. And the people believe him? Ju asked. Some do, Kyung said. Others are confused. The Vorn soldiers control the main cities, but not everyone accepts them. Do-hyun was working with a communication device when it suddenly lit up. A message from Earth, he said excitedly. They all gathered around as the message played. The leader of Earth's united government appeared on the screen. Princess Ju, Emperor, and people of the Stellar Empire, the Earth leader said, we have received your message and the evidence of the Vorn betrayal. Earth stands with you. Our ships are already on their way. Ju looked confused. Earth ships. but they are small and few compared to the Vorn fleet. Do-Yun smiled. It's not about the size of the ships. It's about how humans fight. Over the next week, reports came in about strange events across the Empire. On 20 planets, Vorn communication systems suddenly stopped working. On others, their weapons suddenly fired backward. Food in Vorn bases made soldiers sick. What is happening? Kyung asked, amazed. Human warfare, Do-Yun explained. We don't try to match our enemies in strength. We look for weak spots and use creative solutions. Earth ships arrived, smaller than Vorn warships, but faster and harder to detect. Human soldiers worked with loyal Imperial citizens to disrupt Vorn control. Torek never took humans seriously, Do-Yun said. That's his mistake. Do-Yun helped create a plan. Using the Imperial broadcasting system, they would show the recording of Torek admitting his crimes to everyone in the Empire at once. But Torek controls the broadcast center, Kyung pointed out. Not for long, Do-Yun said. That night, a small team of humans and loyal Imperials snuck into the broadcast center. The Vorn guards were strong, but the humans used Earth fighting styles they had never seen before. They moved quietly, disabled guards without killing them, and took control of the main system. At the same time, Princess Ju led another team into the palace through secret passages that only the royal family knew about. We need to reach the throne room, she told them. When the broadcast begins, people will need to see that their emperor and princess are alive and fighting. In the control room of the broadcast center, Do-Yun prepared the recording. Ready in 3 minutes, he told Ju through a secure communicator. Just then, alarms began to sound. Vorn troops are coming, someone shouted. Hold them off, Do-Yun ordered. We only need 3 minutes. The humans and Imperial soldiers worked together to block doors and create barriers. The Vorn pushed forward with their greater numbers, but the defenders used smart tactics to slow them down. 1 minute left, Do-Yun said as he finished preparing the broadcast. In the palace, Ju and her team reached the throne room doors. Inside, they could hear Torek speaking to his officers. 30 seconds, came Do-Yun's voice through the communicator. Ju nodded to her team. They burst through the doors, surprising Torek and his officers. This ends now, Ju said, her voice strong and clear. At that exact moment, every screen and communication device across the Empire lit up. People everywhere saw Torek's face as he admitted to attacking Imperial planets while pretending to be an Outer Rim enemy. They heard his plans to take over the Empire. Then the broadcast switched to show Princess Ju standing proudly in the throne room, facing a shocked Torek. People of the Stellar Empire, she said, the truth is revealed. The Vorn are not our saviors but our enemies. Stand with me now to save our empire. Across thousands of planets, people began to rise up against the Vorn occupiers. The tide was turning, and it had all begun with one human's different way of thinking. In the throne room, Commander Torek's face twisted with rage. He lunged toward Princess Ju, but her guard stepped in front of her. It's over, Torek, Ju said. The people know what you did. It's not over, Torek growled. The Vorn still control your main cities. Your father is too weak to rule, and you are just a girl. She is not alone, said a voice from the doorway. Do-Yun entered the throne room, followed by Earth soldiers and loyal Imperial guards. The broadcast had been successful, and they had fought their way to the palace. Torek looked at the human with hate in his eyes. This is all because of you, he said, a primitive human from a backward planet. Sometimes the most powerful ideas are the simple ones, Do-Yun replied. Like telling the truth. Fighting broke out in the throne room. The Vorn were strong warriors, but the humans fought in ways they had never seen before. They used teamwork and quick thinking instead of just strength. Across the Empire, similar battles were happening. People who had believed the Vorn were now fighting against them. Earth ships attacked Vorn vessels using unexpected tactics that confused the enemy. In the palace, Torik realized he was losing. He pulled out a hidden weapon and aimed it at Juwu. "If I can't have the Empire, no one will," he shouted. Do-hyun saw the weapon and jumped toward Juwu. The weapon fired. Do-hyun pushed Juwu out of the way, but the energy blast hit him in the shoulder. He fell to the ground. Juwu's guards quickly captured Torik. The battle was ending. The Vorn were surrendering all across the palace. Do-hyun. Juwu knelt beside him. "Are you okay?" Do-hyun smiled through his pain. "I'll live. Humans are tough." 1 month later, the imperial palace was filled with representatives from hundreds of planets. The emperor sat on his throne, looking stronger than before. Princess Juwu stood beside him, wearing her most formal royal clothes. Do-hyun stood nearby, his arm still in a healing wrap. He wore a special uniform that combined Earth and imperial styles. The emperor raised his hand for quiet. "Today marks a new beginning for our empire," he said. "The Vorn threat has been defeated, thanks to the bravery of many, including our new friends from Earth." He nodded to the Earth representatives, who bowed. "My daughter, Princess Juwu, has shown great wisdom and courage," the emperor continued. "She will now share our vision for the future." Juwu stepped forward. "For too long, the empire has ruled from above. We told others what to do, but we did not listen. That will change today." She explained her plan for a new kind of government. All planets would have a voice. Different species would work together. The empire would still provide protection and stability, but each world would have more freedom to choose its own path. "And to show our commitment to this new way," Juwu said, "I am creating a new position, Ambassador of Cooperation. This person will help different worlds understand each other better." She turned to Do-hyun. "I can think of no better person for this role than the human who helped save our empire." Do-hyun looked surprised but stepped forward and bowed. Later, when the ceremony was over, Juwu and Do-hyun walked in the palace garden. The 3 moons shone in the sky, just as they had when they first met. "Ambassador of Cooperation," Do-hyun said. "That's a big job." "Too big?" Juwu asked with a smile. "No," Do-hyun said, "but it means I'll be staying here for a long time." "I was hoping you would," Juwu said softly. She took his hand in hers. It was not a princess touching a subject, but one person connecting with another. "You know," Do-hyun said, "on Earth, we have stories about people from different worlds falling in love. We have those stories here too," Juwu replied. "Maybe they aren't just stories." As they looked up at the stars, both knew that this was just the beginning. A princess and a human, working together to change the universe, and perhaps along the way, finding something even more important than peace between worlds, love between 2 hearts, no matter how different their origins.